Greetings, everybody. Well, here we go. I'm going to give this a shot here. This is probably going to be a little bit of a... We're going to probably break this off in segments. But we're going to try to determine the new year biblically in the first month, and the first month which is known as Abib or Nisan, which occurs somewhere either in between March or April. It can occur in any of those 2 months on our Gregorian calendar. Now, according to the Hillel calculations, and we'll be getting into a little bit of a study on Hillel in another part, they have Passover and the first month, or the new year, the first month occurring in March, and it seems to me, and another person I am consulting with, that that the Passover is off, or the month of Nisan is off by about a month. So that in mind, what would that make? That would make the previous month off too. And we're going to get into that. I'm going to show you the moon calendar, and we're going to kind of break this down in a simple fashion so we can possibly determine when the actual first month starts, and when the Passover starts, and then when the unleavened bread starts. So those that like to acknowledge those feast days will be able to do so in its correct timing, okay? But, as it says in Revelations, the whole world is deceived. And man of sin or Antichrist would think to change times and laws. And, these times have been changed dramatically. The Hillel calendar has been known to have been at least 240 years off. It's a fixed calendar. And also the fact of the new moon being the crescent moon, being the first crescent, or the first sliver, is probably off too, and we're going to get into that. Because I found some interesting things in Scripture regarding that. So, let's go ahead and get started at Genesis 1:14. We're going to read the fourth day and see what it says. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, for seasons, and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, which is the sun, and the lesser light to rule the night, which is the moon. He made the stars also, and God said, "Set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness." And God saw that it was good. Then the evening and the morning were the 4th day. So, what does this tell us? Well, a lot of people really freak out when it comes to using the sun to guide us as far as signs and seasons and days and years. Well, it just said in Genesis 14 that the lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. That includes the sun. Okay? This isn't Baal worship. This isn't sun worship. Okay? You use the sun to determine the equinoxes, and therefore, when you look at the equinox, you'll be able to tell when the new year begins by looking at the first new moon after the first equinox, spring equinox. You look at the first new moon after the spring equinox, and that is the first month. And that happens in our April. And that is probably more likely when the first month takes place. Okay? So let's go ahead and look at this further. Let's look at the word seasons. Okay? The word seasons means moed, or moada, which is a fixed time, or a season, specifically a festival, or conventionally a year. So you have fixed times, you have fixed seasons. You have fall, winter, spring, summer. Okay? What are the two seasons that these feast days take place? Spring and fall, right? Okay, so those are two fixed times that are very important to look at here. So, and what happens in the spring and fall? You only have two equinoxes in the year. You have the spring equinox, and you have the fall equinox. And the spring equinox, which is determined by the sun, when it crosses the equator, all right. And then you look at you find out when the next new moon is after the spring equinox, and then that's how you determine your month. So basically, that's using the stars, the sun, the moon, the stars for times, seasons, days, and years. Alright? It could also mean feast or appointed or due season. Time appointed. So basically, like I said, fixed times. Summer, winter, fall, spring. Okay? Now this is a message I received after I asked a question to this individual, and this is what he says. He said, because I asked him, because he was talking about the barley and being Aviv in Israel. And I asked him, well, how is that possible when biblical Israel stretched way beyond what man has dreamt up with what Israel is today? Okay? And he responded in a very nice way, in a very easy way for me to understand, and so I want to share this with you. And this is all true. You can back this all up with scripture. And he says, good questions, brother. Yes, biblical Israel should extend from the Euphrates to the Nile. So where's the Nile located? It's in Egypt. Alright, so with the barley, when the barley has to be fully Abib, it needs to be fully ripened or ripe in all of Israel, biblical Israel, which includes Egypt. We'll get into that in a moment. Barley in that land area will only be Aviv when you wait for the first new moon after the spring equinox to begin the new year. This is why people who only try to use barley and no other indicator get so thrown off. Remember, Noah could still figure out the new year even though he was on a boat and the whole earth was covered in water. And the children of Israel had no barley to consult when they wandered the wilderness, did they? No, they didn't. This is why waiting for the first new moon after the spring equinox will always ensure you begin the new year on time. So, if we look at Exodus 12:2 through 4, go ahead and write these verses down. I'll put the verses in the description box below. It says, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months, and shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls, every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. So, in Exodus 12:2 says, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. Where was Moses when God gave him this instruction? He was in Egypt. He wasn't in Israel, now was he? Okay. Bear that in mind. It shall be the first month of the year to you. So, how could he have known about barley in the land of Canaan when he was in Egypt, and he got that message from Egypt when he was in Egypt? It's things you got to ask yourself. Okay, so let's look at the word month, and then we'll get into that question next. The word month comes from the word kodesh, which means new moon. Not a sliver, not a little sliver, or no new moon or moon horns like Islam determines their beginning of their months by the sliver of the new moon. All the other religions determine their beginning of their months. The Eastern religions with a sliver of the new moon. But the new moon means new. Okay? The root meaning basically means to be new, causatively to rebuild, or renew, repair. Okay? So to be new, to be made new, fresh. Which can also mean to be new, renew, repair, or to make anew, to repair, to renew oneself. So it's kind of like a renewing of oneself. You're starting with a clean slate. You know, nothing is showing. It's bare, brand new. Okay? So what does that mean? Well, the new moon quite possibly is a deception in and of itself by going by the sliver, which is also found in writings such as the Talmud. And there's a lot of indicators in the Bible that does not talk about looking for the sliver of the new moon. It just talks about observing the new moon. Maybe looking at the sliver as the moon is going into the new moon phase. Okay, but not as it's coming out of the new moon phase. Because I believe in Psalms 83:1 it talks about blow the trumpet on the new moon. Well, if the new moon means new, a blank moon, it means you can't really see it. Then they must have been watching for that new moon to appear after the waning crescent, which is right before the moon changes to the new moon cycle. So that's another thing I was thrown off with as well. I know this is really kind of hard for some of you to comprehend, but at the end of this is going to be really simple. And when you determine this, you should be able to figure out the rest of the year, basically. I'm trying to make this as simple as I can. It's easier said than done. Anyways, so in Exodus 12:2 we learn that God tells Moses that this will be the beginning of your months. However, Moses is not in Israel at the time when Yahweh or Yahuwah or Father God shows him how to determine the beginning of the year. No, in fact, Moses never even entered Israel during his lifetime. Moses was in Egypt when God taught him how to determine the beginning of the year. Now here's a little food for thought, okay? The barley ripens on average 7 to 8 weeks later in Israel than in Egypt. So God would have told Moses to calculate a year that would have begun about 2 months earlier than it would have begun if they were in Israel. So it seems like there's a discrepancy there. Well, let's look at... We have to think logically here. Moses was raised in Egypt, okay? So I'm pretty sure he probably learned in all the Egyptian studies. We also know that the pyramids, the Giza pyramids, are situated so that on the day of the equinoxes, spring and fall, they cast a shadow in a perfect east-west line all day. So Moses would have certainly been aware of equinoxes, right? So, and again, we also know from Genesis 1:14 That the sun, moon, and stars are given to us for signs and in determining feast days, seasons, years, etc. So when God tells Moses to determine the beginning of months in Exodus 12:2, Moses would have instantly thought of the spring equinox based off his learning and understanding. It only seems logical for us to think and, for us to assume that, right? Now, if we wait until after the spring equinox, which occurs on March 20th or the 21st, it's mainly been occurring on the 20th every single year since 2005. So if we wait until after the spring equinox and determine the new year on the next new moon, with the barley being ripe, then the new year in Egypt and Israel would begin at the same time, and therefore you would have your set time for the first month of the biblical year. Now the question is, does the first month take place in March? Does the Passover take place in March? We'll get into that in just a moment. So, the spring equinox, what is it exactly? Well, an equinox occurs twice a year around the 20th of March and the 22nd of September, when the tilt of the Earth's axis is inclined neither away from nor towards the sun, the center of the sun being in the same plane as the Earth's equator. The term equinox can also be used in a broader sense, meaning the date when such a passage happens. The name equinox is derived from the Latin equus, which means equal, and nox, which means night, because around the equinox, night and day are about equal length. Again, these aren't the winter and summer solstices. These are the two equinoxes that occur each year, spring and fall. Okay, the equinoxes are the only times when the subsolar point is on the equator. This point, the place on the Earth's surface where the center of the sun can be observed exactly overhead, crosses the equator moving northward at the March equinox and crosses the equator moving southward at the September equinox. So, at the March equinox, which we are approaching, the sun is crossing over the equator moving northward. Okay, so that's basically, again, another factor of telling you when these equinoxes are. You have one in the spring and you have one in the fall. Spring, fall, spring, fall. Okay, that's not that hard to figure out. So you don't even really need to know what the word equinox is. Now, the equinox is the same thing as spring equinox is spring. The fall equinox is fall. First day of fall. First day of spring. It's just that simple. So, now that we got that covered, let's go ahead and see if we can figure this out. Because for those that just want to go by the moon, and this is the primary source what we should be using anyways, and we should never be lost on this matter. So, hopefully this will help. What I have here is the month of March, okay? And if the first month of Nisan actually begins, if the first month of the year actually begins in April, then we are just going to be hitting the month of Adar here on March 12th, which is the new moon. Okay. So right now we are still in the 11th month, according to the Hebrew calendar. So as of March 12th, we will be hitting the 12th month. Again, the calendar that is being used now is about a month off. Here's the first day of spring. This is the spring equinox, March 20th 2013 or March 21st, 2013, either one. So here we have the spring equinox starting, first day of spring. Now, as I said before, you determine the first month of the year, by the new moon after the spring equinox. So let's go to April. There you have it. New moon occurs on the 10th of April, 2013. This is when the first month Nisan or Abib occurs. Okay, so this is day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, this is Nisan 10. This is when the lambs were brought for inspection. So we have 11, 12, 13, 14. There's Passover right here on the 23rd. And April is the 24th. This starts the week of unleavened bread. So that goes from the 24th, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the Sabbath right there on the 27th. 5, 6, 7. And the week of unleavened bread ends on Tuesday, the 30th of April. Passover starts on Tuesday, the 23rd of April. And unleavened bread starts on the 24th and ends on the 30th. So, in the next video that I'll probably end up doing, we're going to kind of go over some more scriptural proof that kind of talks about like the new moon being not the first crescent or the first sliver. Okay. The new moon is actually new. And how do they observe that? Well, they probably observe that by looking at this waning crescent here. And when this was not showing anymore, that's how they determined the next month, is by the new moon, not the sliver. So, the sliver is based off of Talmudic traditions and a lot of other Eastern religions like Islam and things of that nature. So, anyways, to the individual that is saying that April the 24th is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, it's right. I mean, he's right. The calendar that is being kept today is about a month off. Okay. And if it's a month off on this month, then it throws out the whole year. So we are still actually in the month of Adar, and we won't. Actually, we're in the 11th month. We haven't even hit Adar yet. So, but this is the first day of Nisan right here. Is the 10th of April. And Passover begins on the 23rd. Unleavened bread begins on the evening of the 23rd into the 24th through the 30th. Not the end of March. Okay, so I hope this helped you. Hopefully at the last part of it was a little more simpler to explain. Until next time, guys. I know this is kind of a difficult thing to understand or whatever, but I'm trying to do the best I can on this, because I think these are very important to get these dates and set times correct, because there's a lot of deception in the times and laws that are being changed daily. So, till next time, guys, truth be told, truth be known, stay safe, God bless, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.